This video is going to show you how to subtract fractions when you have to regroup. Now, before we practice actually subtracting two fractions, let's just practice the actual act of regrouping a mixed number fraction, into its parts. So I'm going to show you an example. So let's say we have the fraction 3 1/4. If I needed to regroup this mixed number, I am going to take one of the wholes from the 3 and turn it into the fraction 4/4. So what does that look like? I'm going to split the number 3. Another way to write the number 3 is 1 plus 1 plus 4/4. So let's just look at what I've done so far. I haven't changed the amount. I've just rewritten it as a different way of looking at it. It still equals 3 wholes. 1 plus 1 plus 4/4 is still equal to 3 wholes. Now I'm going to tack on to the end that other 1/4 that was a part of the fraction. And now I'm going to rewrite this as a new mixed number, still equivalent to my original one. So now I have 2 wholes and 4/4 plus 1/4, which is 5/4. So what we have just done is now we've created this new mixed number that is still equivalent to the original mixed number, but it's written in a different way. The reason that this is helpful is if I was subtracting another mixed number from this and it had a larger numerator, it would be a problem to subtract them. So let me show you an example now. Let's say the problem was 3 1/4 minus 1 3/4. Now, if you were going to try and solve this before you knew how to regroup, you might say, okay, well, 3 minus 1 is 2, and then you would have to stop here because you can't do 1/4 minus 3/4. It is not equal to 2/4. 3/4 minus 1/4 would be 2/4, but it doesn't work the other way around. So this is the type of problem where you would have to regroup 3 1/4 and write it as 2 5/4. And now I can correctly subtract these. So now 2 minus 1 would be 1 whole. Oops. 2 minus 1 would be 1 whole, and 5/4 minus 3/4 would be 2/4. Okay, so let's look at another example of a problem where you have to subtract with regrouping. And this one that I'm going to show you is actually from your practice sheet. So our new problem says 12 2/9 minus 7 2/3. Now, right away, you should be noticing that these two fractions have different denominators. So I cannot move forward at all with subtracting them until I create common denominators. And since we've been practicing this skill, right away you should notice that a denominator of 9 and a denominator of 3 can easily make a least common denominator of 9. So this fraction will not need to change at all. Instead, I'm only going to change 2/3 into having a new denominator of 9. So I like to write the new denominator first so I make sure I know what it is. It needs to have a denominator of 9. Right now it only has a denominator of 3. I'm going to have to multiply the numerator and denominator times something to get it to equal 9. If you want to draw a box and think of it like that, 3 times something has to equal 9. Well, I know 3 times 3 equals 9. And if 3 is getting multiplied by the denominator, then 3 also has to get multiplied by the numerator. So I'm going to rewrite my fraction, my problem, now with having 7 and 6/9 instead of 7 and 2/3. And I would like you to do this step. Rewrite 12 and 2/9 minus 7 and 6/9. So now I'm ready to start thinking about subtracting because I have the same common denominator. All right, so right away when I start wanting to think about subtracting two mixed numbers, I want to look at the whole numbers and see that, oh yeah, I can do 12 minus 7. However, I need to be careful in this case because my larger number, the number that I'm subtracting out of, has a 2 in the numerator. And I cannot solve 2/9 minus 6/9. So this is a perfect example of the type of problem where we're going to need to regroup. So again, I'm going to take one of these wholes out of 12 and change it into a fraction. How do you know what fraction you turn it into? It's dependent on this denominator. So in this case, I'm going to take one of the numbers from 12 and turn it into 9/9. So I'm going to make this 11 instead of 12. And I'm going to add 9/9 to this 2/9. So this is going to look like 11 plus 9/9 plus 2/9. So what did I do? I took that 12 and I broke it up into 11 holes there and one of the holes there. That's all I did. Okay, it just looks different, but it's the same number. So let's combine this all. 11 plus 9/9 plus 2/9 is 11 and 11/9. Now I can subtract out this original number. So 11 minus 7, 4. 11/9 minus 6/9, 5. 4 and 5/9. So the new thing that is maybe a little less familiar is this part here. Regrouping that whole number and fraction part. Practice that a little bit till you feel comfortable with the first page of your practice. The back page of your practice has some subtraction problems.